I know that it is hard for Americans to realize the magnitude of the war in which we are involved. We have problems in this war no other nations have.
In a time of uncertainty, Americans turn to their government, and when government wants to reassure its people, they turn to propaganda. Propaganda in World War I was basically advertising by the government to convince Americans to support the war. Propaganda can be used subconsciously to convince people that they believe something. It is a deliberate attempt to influence public opinion through the transmission of ideas. Welsh. Propaganda was used by all sides of World War I, mainly for support on the home front, support ranging from food rationing all the way to enlisting people to fight, thousands of miles away, to simply instigating enthusiasm. Propaganda can also be used in a negative manner, to dehumanize the enemy. Propaganda in the U.S. was exceptionally powerful and had various widespread effects that prove the underestimated worth of propaganda. Three major types of propaganda were used in World War I. They include speeches, posters, and the newest form, motion pictures.
Because motion pictures were so new during the World War I era, they were very popular among the American people. The government, seeing potential in this, teamed up with Hollywood directors to create films that would promote the war. Pacifist films were banned, but films like The Kaiser's Fall and To Hell with the Kaiser became very popular. In addition, actors and actresses helped to endorse the U.S. bonds program being run by the U.S. Treasury. This bonds program encouraged ordinary Americans to buy bonds and to help fund the war. In fact, this bonds campaign, which included posters as well, helped to raise $23 billion for the war effort.
An example of propaganda from posters was the Red Cross Christmas Week campaign. It was made to
convince Americans to join the Red Cross
for the war, and it turned out to enlist 16 million Americans for the war. This was an impressive outcome and shows the effectiveness of the posters.
Another powerful tool in propaganda is the human voice, or in other words, speeches. During this time, the government worked hard to create the Hun image of the Germans, or in other words, a group of undemocratic, unchristian people. However, many Americans were quick to take this Hun image and place it upon the German Americans living in the U.S. As the former U.S. ambassador to Germany, James Gerard Watson, once said,
"And if there are any German Americans here who are so ungrateful for all the benefits they have received that they are still for the Kaiser, there is only one thing to do with them, and that is to hog-tie them. Give them back the wooden shoes and the rags they landed in and ship them back to the fatherland."
So, did America fight a total war? Based off of all the propaganda that was used in the United States, America did fight a total war. Government hired artists and speech givers to encourage the American people that war was a necessity. Actors participated too, encouraging people to purchase bonds. The Germans were portrayed as unchristian, undemocratic, militaristic people. Americans were encouraged to get involved in every way possible in the war. Men were recruited to join the armed forces, women were recruited to work in the factories, but the propaganda was best used to raise the morale of the home front and keep the American people behind the war. This created a huge movement towards Americanism, which would later become a backlash against German Americans and other immigrants. In the end, propaganda was used to convince every American that they were each fighting in the war and had something at stake in its outcome. So there was a sense of total support, total participation, and total dependency on the outcome of the war. Therefore, America did fight a total war.
But now that we are in the war, there are only two sides, and the time has come when every citizen must declare himself American or traitor.
So send me away with a smile.